I'm a psychologist, and I think psychology is wonderful. And the thing that strikes me about psychology, as compared to many other kinds of disciplines, is that psychology is the most diverse of all the disciplines. We have people in our department who study neurons and receptors in the brain. We have people who study public policy, and we have people who study everything in between. And so when you get that much diversity, we can appeal, I think, to people who have all sorts of different interests. If you're interested in working with kids, you can be in psychology. If you're interested in working on people with psychological problems, with mental health issues, you can be in psychology. If you're interested in how the brain works and how that translates into behavior, you can do that in psychology. If you're interested in interpersonal relationships, romantic relationships, friendships, you can do that in psychology. If you're interested in how people develop over time, from childhood through adulthood, you can do that in psychology. And quite honestly, the list goes on and on and on, and I think that's why psychology tends to be such a popular major, because we offer so much to such a wide variety of people.
It drew me since I was young to understand the science of the brain, but also understand the social aspects of the mind. And I loved the way that that was combined in psychology. It was just so relevant to personal life, and I didn't expect that.
We have a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and a Bachelor of Science in Psychology. Now, psychology as a field is a science. However, the Bachelor of Arts degree works for most people, so we describe it as the general degree that works for most. We do have the Bachelor of Science, and that serves students who want to go on into health professions, so students who are pre-med or pre-dentistry, pre-veterinary medicine, or students that want to go on into cognitive neuroscience or behavioral neuroscience. Those are the people for whom the BS really serves them well. The difference between the two, not only in who's it suited for, is if you do Bachelor of Science, you have additional math, you have additional biology, and you have additional chemistry. If you don't really need to take those classes, then the Bachelor of Arts lets you customize your major a little bit more toward what you're interested in.
A psychology degree is a very well-rounded degree. I think where we excel is on teaching critical thinking skills, helping students learn to analyze information that they're encountering throughout their daily lives.
UB has a wonderful, vibrant, modern psychology department, and in the Department of Psychology we have extraordinary faculty. So the faculty at UB are all world-class researchers. Their work is funded by the National Science Foundation, the National Institutes of Mental Health, and many other organizations. So they're doing cutting-edge research on psychological questions. The fact that we have these faculty and we're at a productive research environment means that undergraduates get teaching in the latest science. So it's exactly what's happening in the field right now.
I do work on addictions. I'm very interested in addictions of all sorts, primarily, most recently, cigarette smoking, which is one of our more pernicious addictions. We're very interested in why people smoke, why they keep doing something that they know is very unhealthy for them. So what is it that's motivating them to continue to use their cigarettes?
Okay, are you ready? We're about to begin.
One thing we know about smokers, as is true of any drug addicts, is that they're very driven by the cues around them, the people, the places, the things that remind them of their drug use. So for instance, if a cigarette smoker sees a cigarette burning in an ashtray, that really is very motivating to them. They'll reach out for it, they will have increased craving for it, they'll want it. So what we can do is take that phenomenon and bring it into the laboratory, present smoking-related cues to cigarette smokers, and see how they react to it. We look at drug craving. We look at their emotional reactions to these cues. We also, in some of our studies, ask people, how much is this worth to you? How much are you willing to spend to get a chance to have a puff on a cigarette? And indeed, that's what they do in our studies. They spend money, real money. It's our money, but they take it home with them if they don't spend it, so it's actually their money. And by telling us how much they're willing to spend, they tell us how much they value that cigarette, how, in psychological terms, how reinforcing it is. And by looking at all these variables in combination at the same time, we can get a better sense of the whole profile of motivations that are driving that person's choices in the real world with regard to smoking.
There are three main lines of research that I do right now. One area is on understanding what's gone wrong in attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and how do the treatments that we use work? How do they influence these basic processes like reinforcement or reward or attention and working memory? And then can we use that knowledge to make the treatments better?
Behavioral neuroscience is a discipline that tries to incorporate psychology and biology, trying to understand the biological basis of how we behave, why we behave, what makes us who we are from the inside. My laboratory is interested in the factors that motivate us to eat and drink in response to deficits of energy or fluid. How do we respond when we're thirsty, when we're hungry? What are the hormone systems that turn on those systems? How do they know that we're hungry or thirsty? And what does the brain do with it once it gets those signals?
I'm a social psychologist, first of all, and so as a social psychologist, I study most broadly how people function as individuals in the social world around them, and that ends up being a very broad field. My specific area of research focuses on how people cope with stressful situations, and specifically, what makes them respond with resilience. What we do in my lab in particular is measure people's cardiovascular response, like how fast their heart is beating, how hard it's beating, how much blood their heart is pumping, how dilated versus constricted their arteries are. And based on this, there are different patterns that emerge physiologically that correspond to different psychological states. Loosely corresponding to feeling that confidence or invigorated excitement on the one hand versus that anxiety or, on an extreme version, overwhelming terror or dread on the other hand. We can differentiate between those two states while people are doing something like giving a speech in front of an audience. My ability to respond with resilience can very much color not just how I'm feeling at the moment, but how my day goes, how my relationship goes, and how my job goes, how well I do at things, and that can have implications for things going forward, weeks, months, years, even a lifetime.
Undergraduates can participate in research as early as their freshman year. So what you can do is contact a faculty member after you read about their work online, or after you take a course with the faculty member, or you see an advertisement looking for research assistants, and then what you do is a wide variety of tasks. So we have undergraduates that run participants through studies. So they run them through different procedures, getting cognitive data, social data, emotional data. We have students that do clinical interviews, so they're trained in clinical interview techniques. And we have some research assistants that work in labs for a number of years. So they're very well trained. They get exposed to graduate students, get exposed to the field, and it's really a wonderful experience no matter what you want to do.
A lot of the information you get about master's programs in graduate school comes from personal connections. So I think one of the best parts about working in these labs is meeting new people, working off of them, working off of their goals, learning what you love based on what you're doing in that lab, what other people are doing, and what the graduate students are telling you about their past experiences.
With psychology, the first course that everybody would take, unless you test out of it, is introductory psychology. So Psych 101, everybody knows about Psych 101 on any college campus. It's one of the most popular classes. So you take Psych 101, that's your prerequisite for basic courses in psych. Our curriculum then has basic skills courses in statistics and then research methods. So those are some basic level courses. Then students can take, with just Psych 101 as the prerequisite, basic what we call distribution courses in major areas of psychology. These all reflect the graduate student training that we do here at UB in 4 core areas of psych. So the first is clinical psychology. It's what most people associate with psychology. It's a study of psychological disorders and their treatment. So you can take clinical psychology and/or abnormal psychology for that. You can take cognitive psychology, which is the basics of how we think, how do we remember, how do we recall information, use information. Then behavioral neuroscience, which is the basics of how our body works and how our body informs thought, feeling, and behavior. And then lastly is social psychology, which is the basics of how others affect us. So you can take any of those 4 courses with just Psych 101 as the prerequisite.
It leads you into so many directions. UB is a huge research school in psychology, which you won't find everywhere. I think that our department is incredibly successful at making students not only feel welcome, but giving them that guidance.
Students in psychology can pick from any number of probably over 100 majors and minors on campus. It's hard to find any field that doesn't marry well with psychology. So we have students who will do a dual degree, so biology and psychology, or they'll major or minor in a variety of areas like communication, political science, management, health and wellness, health professions, just about any field, theater and dance, art, English, history. You can pair it with psychology. So There are many, many ways you can customize your major, depending on what your interests are. Off campus, we have students who are doing internships at a wide variety of nonprofit organizations across the Buffalo area, also other businesses and companies. They might work in those and get internship credit for doing that. We have students who are doing research at the Research Institute on Addictions here in Buffalo, also at Roswell Park Cancer Institute. Then we have students on campus that are really making the most of their time here. We have the Psychology Honors Program. I'm director of the Psych Honors Program. That's when students in their senior year decide to do an independent research project under the supervision of a faculty advisor. It's the best preparation that we have for students who want to go to graduate school in psychology or related fields. You get hands-on experience doing research over that senior year period. So you do the research, you write it up into an honors thesis, and then you get to defend that thesis to 2 faculty members, not your advisor, just like you would for a mini master's oral defense. Students then graduate with either honors, high honors, or highest honors in psychology, and it's a wonderful experience for students who think they might want to go on into research.
And just being involved in an honor society, it just gives you a sense of closeness with your other students, it gives you a sense of success, and it's a motivator to move forward in the field.
Right out of your bachelor's degree in psychology, students are competitive for a wide range of jobs, any job that deals with people. So psychology majors are well informed in human behavior, and so any job that deals with people, their training is relevant. In addition, we have students that go on right from their bachelor's degree into jobs in things like sales or human resources. With more training, if you decide you want to go on to graduate school in psychology or related fields, we have students that do additional training in psychology itself, so they might get training in research, go on to careers in academic psychology or research itself, or in teaching. We have people that go on into the mental health professions, so you might do additional training in psychology or in social work or counseling psychology. People go on into education, law, business. It's hard to find any area that psychology doesn't prepare you well for. So psychology is the most popular. It's the largest single discipline major on campus. We have about 1,400 majors here at UB, and we have another 300 at the Singapore Institute of Management, so it's an incredibly popular major. What that means is there's a lot going on here in psychology. It's a busy place with highly productive people. We describe psychology and the faculty here as a mighty group. So we teach a lot of students, we work with a lot of students, we're dedicated to a lot of students. So it's a major that is incredibly popular, and it's one that you can use for a whole wide variety of career options, and I think that's what makes it so popular.